Good morning and good afternoon. Thank you for joining this webinar titled Bridge the Enterprise Mobile Security Gap. My name is Gertjan Arling, also known as Dutch, and I will be the host and one of the presenters for today's webinar. You can submit your questions at any time using the Q&A window on the right side of your screen, and we will have a Q&A session at the end of the presentation as well. If you would like to view the presentation in full screen format, click the full screen button, which is represented by 4 arrows, and you can also toggle back to the previous view by clicking the same button. So our first presenter today is John Altzik, Senior Principal Analyst at Enterprise Strategy Group, and John will take us through the research done on mobile computing security. After that, you will see a short presentation on Checkpoint Mobile Security. We're now ready to get started, so I will turn it over to John.
Thank you, Dutch, and hello, everyone. My name is John Altzik. I'm a Senior Principal Analyst at ESG, and I'm going to take you through some of our research on mobile computing security. The research was done at the end of last year, but I think it's still incredibly relevant today, and I think moving into next year, I think mobile computing security gets even more attention. So if we go to my next slide, please. Real simple agenda today. I'm going to talk about mobile computing realities. Mobile computing, as I said, it's gotten a lot of attention. Some of this is hype, but some of it's really well-deserved, and I'm going to explore that. I'll talk about mobile security and IT operations. So a situational analysis of where we are today. What are the problems? What are the trade-offs of work between security and IT ops? And how's that working? And I think we can deduce from our research that it's not working nearly as well as it could be, and that's a bellwether of things to come. I'll talk about assessments and recommendations based on ESG data, based on a tremendous number of conversations I've had with security professionals, CISOs at enterprise companies. And then the bigger truth is the ESG summary and conclusion. And when I've gotten through that, I'll turn it back over to Checkpoint. So if we go to the next slide, we've been looking at mobile computing for a number of years, and we've seen a consistent pattern, which is really represented in this pie chart. So we asked 242 security professionals working in enterprise organizations, enterprise being defined as 1,000 employees or more. And we asked them, how important would you say mobile devices are to your organization's business processes and productivity? You can see that there's overwhelmingly positive responses to this question. So about a third, 32%, said that mobile devices are critical. 55% said very important, and 10% said important. So all but 2% said that mobile devices were critical, very important, or important. And that's especially true if you start looking on an industry perspective. So industries like logistics, healthcare, insurance, and even in the military, we're seeing a lot of uptick in the use of mobile devices. In some cases, the mobile device becoming the primary computing device for employees. So if we go to the next slide, we also wanted to know what percentage of employees were using mobile devices in the enterprise. And just to summarize this slide, what you can see is that 65% of organizations said that more than 50% of their employees are using mobile devices to get their jobs done. Now, this is sort of synonymous with BYOD, but it's not necessarily BYOD. In other words, there are a lot of organizations that are still providing mobile devices to their employees as a means of standardization, as a means of being able to develop common applications. So it's a mix of BYOD and still company-owned activity. But suffice it to say, the data suggests that a large percentage of employees are using these mobile devices every day to get their jobs done, which is not a surprise, but the numbers are pretty high. If you go to the next slide, we wanted to know the number of mobile devices in use and being supported. Now, remember, this was a survey of enterprise organizations, so in 1,000 employees or more. And you can see that the sweet spot for mobile device usage is in the 1,000 to 10,000 range. Now, just to be clear, an organization with 1,000 employees doesn't have 10,000 devices. This was a range of security professionals, and some of them worked at organizations with 1,000 employees, but many worked at organizations with 10,000 employees, 20,000 employees or more. So you can see that 61% of those we surveyed said that their organizations had between 1,000 and 10,000 mobile devices in use. And then you can see also that 10% said 10,000 to 19,999 and further on. Well, it speaks to the popularity of mobile devices and mobile computing. It also speaks to the scalability issues that we have to deal with. So on top of the thousands of PCs, now we have thousands of mobile devices to manage. And it speaks to the security challenges associated with managing that number of devices. And clearly anyone who's worked in IT, anyone who's worked in security understands that scalability is a very difficult thing to deal with. So that's a major part of mobile device security, mobile computing security moving forward. It's just the pure scalability aspects. So if you go on to the next slide, so the reasons for mobile device use. Now, there's a lot of data there, and it's probably difficult to read, but let me help out the audience a little bit. In the middle of the slide, about 45% or 45% of the respondents said that employees, including non-executives, were already using mobile devices for business purposes and asked us to support their activities. Now, again, these are IT and security people answering these questions. Now, the reason why I point that out is because that's sort of the 2 or 3 year old reason why companies started supporting mobile devices. They were brought in by executives, they were brought in by users, and ultimately users were given email access, and then it moved on from there. My point really is that we've progressed far beyond that sort of initial push. And if you look at the top reasons, 52% said we viewed mobile device access as a way to increase employee productivity. 51% said we wanted to use mobile devices to improve specific business processes. We hear that a lot because we look at different employees, the things they do, the business processes they conduct, and we develop applications specifically for them. 51% said line of business managers asked us to support mobile device access to give employees access to specific applications. So the point is that there's a pattern here. Mobile computing is not just a matter of convenience. It's not a consumerization of IT per se. It's also being used for new kinds of business processes, new kinds of productivity, new ways to reach customers. Now, that's not a surprise, but that's becoming much more of the rule than it was in the past. So we know that there's a large number of devices. We know that there's business reasons to use these devices. We know that that mobile computing is becoming more and more important. So it's a home run for IT. It's a real good use of technology. But I've had a lot of discussions with CISOs, and just the problem that we've seen in the past is that mobile computing comes in through the business units, and then all of a sudden security has to figure out what these devices are, who has access to them, what they're doing, and figure out security policies and how to enforce those. So that's very, very, very difficult. So if we go on to the next slide, let's get more specific on that. We asked this audience to define the challenges associated with mobile computing. And so from a security perspective, there are a couple things that stand out to me. And once again, a lot of data, I apologize. I believe these slides will be made available to the audience. If not, email me and I'd be glad to send them to you. So if we looked at the biggest challenges with mobile computing security, they really center on data. So 43% said protecting data confidentiality confidentiality and integrity when sensitive data is accessed by a mobile device over the network. 41% said protecting data confidentiality and integrity when sensitive data is stored on a mobile device. So it's really about protecting the data. These devices are often lost or stolen. If sensitive, regulated data is on a mobile device, it's a data breach you must disclose, so that's a real challenge. Some other things that stand out are sort of the mainstreaming of mobile computing security. So 36% said integrating mobile device security processes and technologies with other enterprise security processes and technologies. That presented a challenge. Too often we've looked at mobile computing as a new initiative and dedicated a particular staff to it and let them buy their own tools. Now, there's nothing wrong with that from a productivity standpoint, but in security, we want to leverage what we've done. We want to certainly adhere to our common processes and policies and be able to enforce those and monitor them. And that's been a problem, and you see that in our data. And one other thing I'll call out is 34% of those we surveyed said one of their challenges with mobile computing security was managing malware or threat management on mobile devices. Now, threat management, mobile malware has been something that I believe has been hyped in the market. However, we're seeing a change. So the number of malware variants for mobile has been high, but it's been really a consumer type of, we've seen consumer cyber incidents, and mostly in Asia. And what we're seeing now is a change. We're seeing a change in the threat landscape, and we're seeing a change in the enterprise security responses. So we're seeing mobile malware starting to mature. We think that, in fact, we're pretty sure that we'll see some mobile malware used as a means of compromising enterprise organizations. And now we're seeing much more interest in threat management or mobile threat management on the enterprise side. So that's a challenge today, and really it's a challenge because the solutions haven't been available. They've been one-off. But we're going to see that challenge start to be much more acute, and we're going to see the supply side respond. So if we go to the next slide, now what we've done in the past when it came to mobile device security is we actually defaulted to something called MDM, or mobile device management. And this has had a number of acronyms, EMM, MDM, MAM, but it's really about managing the devices or the applications or the features of the devices. It really hasn't been about mobile computing per se. So in terms of deployment of MDM, what we see is that 48% of the enterprises we surveyed said they've deployed MDM technology already, and 31% said they were in the process of deploying MDM. Couple of little side notes to that. One is that they often deploy multiple MDM solutions because mobile computing comes in on the backs of businesses or decentralized IT. So that creates a problem for security if there are multiple MDM platforms. The other thing that struck me was you would think that the game is over with MDM, but really there's still a market of people who are either experimenting with MDM or have several projects underway. And so therefore there's plenty of room for improvements and even a new model that's an evolution of what MDM was or is today. And I think that's what happens with security. So if I go to the next slide, interestingly, when we talked, and now this was a security audience, so there's some expectation here that they would identify security types of features. But the most important MDM features identified, number one was data encryption, 39%. And as we saw, the challenge or the concern was about data security, so it's not a surprise, but this is basic data security. This is like full disk encryption on a PC, which is a compliance checkbox. And yes, it protects the data if someone steals your PC and they don't know your password. But if they do know your password, they have access to everything. Well, it's the same thing here. That you can protect. We're protecting the data, but we're not providing granular protection. The other things that they thought of was, interestingly, one of the most important features was antivirus and anti-malware capabilities, which in many MDM platforms were either not part of the core platform or integrated as a third-party solution. Now, this just shows you where the security mindset is, that that's an important component. And then beyond that, what you see is a lot of IT operations tasks. In fact, other ESG research indicates that IT ops really owns MDM. And IT ops owns the security components of MDM, which are things like making sure that systems aren't jailbroken, making sure that they have the right apps on them, encrypting data. So basic configuration things that IT ops does for PCs as well, but there's really not as much security oversight or security functionality as we're going to need. And if you go to the next slide, we asked about the challenges with MDM because it is supposedly an enterprise software package. But what we see is that 38% said that MDM is difficult to integrate with other security technologies. That's a real red flag to me because the security team is scrambling around. We know from our research as well as other research that they're understaffed, they don't have the right skills, and so to think that you have to do redundant tasks because MDM doesn't integrate into core security functionality, that's a red flag. That's not good for security, and as MDM or as mobile devices are exposed to more threats, that's a real problem. We also see that scalability is a problem, and that too creates overhead for security. We see things like MDM functionality and features work differently on each type of mobile device. Again, we just don't have the luxury of having an army of security professionals to manage mobile security. So the more we can leverage of our existing tools, our existing processes, of common policies, common oversight, very important, but we're not doing that today, and that's really the important point I want to emphasize. So if we go to the next slide, really, this is where we are in the presentation, and this is what we see. So we talked about mobile devices growing in number and value. What we didn't talk about, and I'll say now, is we see a tremendous amount of application development for mobile devices, either native development or hybrid development, but we see a lot of that. What we've done in response to that from a security perspective is device-centric security. So it's one-off. It doesn't necessarily work with other network nodes or adhere to the same kind of security as other network nodes like servers or endpoints or even networking equipment. And it's kind of spun up all these new initiatives, new policies, and new tools, which are really focused on IT ops. And now the MDM vendors are trying to move up the value chain to the applications. There's a tremendous amount of security risk that isn't being covered. The data security is elementary, like I said. There's no granularity, and there's non-existing threat management. That's a little bit of an overstatement. There's a lot of integration, but there's really no comprehensive suite like we're starting to get on the network and on endpoints. So my conclusion is we're looking at mobile computing security with basic IT operations tools, but we're not looking holistically. We're not looking at users, data, business processes, all the things that we really need to secure mobile computing correctly. So if we go to the next slide, I think it's useful to think of the CISO security triad. And this is a concept I came up with after speaking with lots and lots of CISOs who really define their jobs in these three buckets. So every CISO is responsible for security efficacy, operational efficiency, and business enablement. And we need to put mobile computing security in that context. So security efficacy means protecting sensitive assets. It means providing threat management capabilities. And it really means locking things down to decrease the threat footprint. And to do that, we have to have the ability to have granular policies, granular monitoring, which we don't have today. Now, operational efficiency. I talked about all the redundancy, all redundant tools, inefficient integration. At scale, that just doesn't work. And we're talking about scales of tens of thousands of devices. So we need security, mobile computing security, that helps our people work smarter instead of harder. And from a business enablement perspective, if you think about granular security, being able to let users do things based on who they are, what device they're using, where they are, what they want to do, then you've increased your security, you've decreased the threat landscape or the threat surface, and you've enabled business. And so that's where we need to get to. So if we go to the next slide, just quickly on mobile malware sentiment, this just reinforces what I talked about before. We asked security professionals to tell us what they thought would happen with the mobile malware threat landscape. Would it get worse? Would it get better over time? And what they told us was at least 38% said that mobile malware threats will become significantly more dangerous over the next 2 years. And 42% said that they would become somewhat more dangerous. So the thought about threat management, which has been nascent in the discussion on mobile computing, clearly security professionals think it's important. So let me stick my neck out because it's that time of year. And so as a prediction, I think 2015 will be the year of mobile computing security. And we will get serious about threat management on mobile. And we will see particular mobile malware compromising enterprise accounts. We haven't seen that yet. We will see that. And once that happens, the cat's out of the bag. Everyone will start to think about this. But I really do believe it will happen. So on to the next slide. What's needed here and really the first thing is we have to think about mobile computing security, not device security. It's bigger. The device is just one device that accesses the network, but we have to think about users, business processes, data, applications. So the first thing we need under that guise is common policy management enforcement. So common meaning that we treat the device as a particular device, but we can enforce policies based on users, devices, the things they're accessing. We need to have that degree of granularity because mobile devices are the challenge today. Internet of Things is the challenge tomorrow. We're going to have lots and lots of different types of devices accessing the network, so we need to get that together. We need strong document-centric data security, meaning we need rules at the document level or at the data element level, not at the global storage level like a full disk encryption. If we have that, then we can enforce DLP better. We can do enterprise rights management. And that's what we need. We need to be able to get down to that atomic level. Granular access policy enforcement, who can do what, where on the network, when. And the other side of mobile is cloud. So we need to think about mobile users using cloud applications. How do we deal with all of those moving parts? And the only way I know of, and what I'm seeing in leading organizations, is the two things they focus on are the data and the identity of the user, and then map everything else into that enforcement layer. And like I've said time and time again, we need better threat management. This has been an emerging trend. In 2012, I'd say threat management on at least enterprise mobile devices was virtually ignored. In 2013, we started to see companies doing research on threat management for mobile. And in 2014, we saw a lot of RFIs and RFPs starting to include the requirement for threat management on mobile. In 2015, I think we'll go from RFIs and RFPs to deployment and threat management, mobile threat management becoming an absolute requirement. So if we go on to the next slide, the bigger truth, this is my concluding slide. We talked about mobile computing realities, how important they are, how they're used in business processes, but they've been separate but equal, meaning that we've set a whole infrastructure up for mobile device management and security. So we're doing twice as much work as we should be, really. And a mobile device, at the end of the day, it's a device. It needs to be managed based on business processes or business policies and who's using the device. And that's where we have to get to. We need to assess our current mobile computing strategy, our coverage, our scale, the integration needs we have, and then align that with our security policies, enforcement, monitoring. We haven't done that in the past. We've just reacted, and we've been very, very device-centric. I said it a bunch of times, but I'll say it again. We need granular protection. So, again, multiple computing security, not device security, where we look at access policies, we look at data security, we look at threat management, and we look at enforcement. And then, of course, I have threat management with an exclamation point. We're seeing a lot of evidence in the cyber community that suggests that there's pretty sophisticated mobile malware development going on. And so I think moving into next year, it's something that will become much more front and center. So with that, thank you so much for listening. I will stick around for Q&A, and let me turn it over to Checkpoint.
Thank you, John. Again, if you have any questions for John, please use the Q&A window to type in your question. We will address your question at the end of the next part of the presentation. Okay, so from John's presentation, we learned that 97% of the respondents in the report indicated that the use of mobile devices by employees is important, very important, or even critically important to the organization's business processes and productivity. We also learned that 65% of the respondents indicated that half or even more of their organization's total employees currently use a mobile device for work on a daily basis. So just keep in mind the sheer numbers of mobile devices and what the importance is to the business. So as indicated in the report as well, the number 3 challenge of mobile computing security is enforcing security policies. And this slide will show the reasons why organizations are and should be concerned. Now, the first mobile virus, it was the Caber worm, appeared just 10 years ago. And today there are more than 11.6 million mobile devices infected with malware. That's a pretty alarming number. The explosion in mobile malware came after the introduction of the first iPhone and Android devices back in 2007 and 2008. So mobile threats continue to escalate in frequency and the sophistication. Now, as more and more people adopt mobile technology for business and personal use, organizations are left struggling to keep up with the security risks associated with the increase of mobile devices. Now, let me take you to a more closer to home situation. Any infection or loss of a mobile device is as easy as 1, 2, 3. It's like a kid's term, right? Now, for instance, I have a daughter. She's a teenager, and she loves to surf the internet on her mobile device. Now, as she's always on her mobile device, her battery runs out sometimes, and then she asks me if she can use either my iPad or my iPhone. Now, mind you, this is my personal device, but I also use it for work. I don't think twice. I just allow my daughter to use my phone. Now, with her surfing the internet, she's not really aware of what's happening on the internet. So she could go to any of the sites. It could be a Facebook, it could be Instagram, or any other kind of website that she likes to visit on a regular basis. If a website gets compromised and that compromise is targeting mobile devices, it's very easy. She goes to the website and malware is being downloaded on my cell phone or on my iPad. Now, the next time that I go to work and I walk into the building, I have my Wi-Fi turned on automatically to connect to the company resources. So before we know it, the malware could be spreading out into your corporate network. Now, another example of infection or loss. In this case, I have some very close stories here. I won't go into detail, but how easy is it to actually forget your device? For instance, if you're in a cab and you're doing some business travel, you're in a cab, you're checking your email, and it's time to, you arrive at your destination, it's time to pay the cab driver, and you just put your phone down to reach out into your pocket, get your wallet out, and you pay the cab driver. And before you know it, you're outside of the cab drives off, and lo and behold, you forgot your phone. So this happens a lot. Now, with companies having a mobile device management in place, they could actually remotely wipe the device after you get in touch with them saying that you lost your device. But if it would be your own personal device, this also means you will lose your personal data as well. Now, the third example here is, and in the report was indicated, the number 1 and number 2 concerns are about data protection. And also 39% of the respondents pointed out that MDM's most important feature is data encryption. Now, if you look at today's world, how we use data inside and outside of the company, I'd like to use the cloud storage services, something like Dropbox or Google Drive or any other cloud storage service, just to share information with my colleagues, or maybe something that I want to send to my family. Now, it is very easy to just download the app and get some data from the network and just to store it onto this service. Now, with MDM, you can actually encrypt the data that resides on the phone. But what happens if the data actually is stored outside of your controlled environment? So with that said, today's solutions, today organizations are trying to put together those solutions to address these challenges. But assembling independent or unrelated solutions to address all the mobile security challenges creates a security gap that leaves the organization potentially vulnerable to threats. The main solutions today are predominantly focused on device management and focus very minimal on actual device and data security. They may secure data that is in a container, but provide no security for documents once they leave the device, as shown in the example of Dropbox. They don't protect devices from threats and do not prevent users from accessing potentially malicious websites and content. So companies are utilizing independent methods such as controlling access to the device or device management, file and disk encryption, and secure containers. Now, these independent methods do not provide a complete and unified solution that can protect organizations from the threats facing them today or in the future. And they do not protect organizational data throughout its life, no matter where data goes. So with all of these risks, you should ask yourself a question: are you confident that you're secure in today's mobile environment? Now, Checkpoint is introducing Checkpoint CAPSULE. Checkpoint CAPSULE protects devices and separates personal and business data by establishing a secure business environment on mobile devices. It also secures documents and enables users to create security that travels with the document everywhere it goes. It also protects your devices from threats everywhere. So let's discuss these capabilities in a little bit more detail. So Checkpoint CAPSULE provides seamless access to business assets for increased employee productivity and still delivers strong data security. So Checkpoint CAPSULE creates a secure business environment where employees can securely and easily access use, and store your business-related documents and assets. Users have one-touch access to corporate email, to files, directories, corporate contacts, and calendars without affecting their personal data. It separates your personal data and applications from business data and applications, putting only the business information under IT control. So IT does not have access to your personal side if you bring your own device. So Checkpoint CAPSULE enables organizations to enhance the productivity of their employees and securely and seamlessly use personal devices and protect managed business data everywhere. Now, Checkpoint CAPSULE also provides seamless security on all documents. Sharing documents with coworkers or with your family, customers, it's an everyday activity today. But most organizations don't truly have control of documents throughout their life cycle. This leaves organizations open to information leakage or worse. Checkpoint CAPSULE enables you to establish document security at the time when the document is created. This ensures that corporate documents are only accessible to authorized people within your organization. So with Checkpoint CAPSULE, users don't have to remember passwords to access documents. Authorized users have seamless access to all documents for which they have authorization. And you can change protections to enable access by other people, such as your colleagues, other people you work with other companies. And you can stop worrying about whether or not someone can forward the document to anybody outside of your reach. So granular document permissions are ensured that you can determine who has access and what they can do with it. You can confidentially share documents because security actually follows the document wherever it goes. So you can also post it on Dropbox or Google Drive and know that those documents will not be accessed by anybody else that you have not authorized. Now, going to the securing mobile devices, traditionally organizations enforce corporate security policies on devices and data within their corporate network to protect them from any of the threats. But mobile devices are used everywhere, so it's not just in the office. With Checkpoint CAPSULE, it enables organizations to extend the same policies from their corporate network to protect mobile devices everywhere they go. So Checkpoint CAPSULE directs all traffic through a secure connection to the cloud where corporate policy is enforced. This ensures organizations that they are able to use protections from all of the Checkpoint software blades as a cloud-based service to protect users and the network from threats and eliminate exposure to malware when mobile devices are off-premise. So with Checkpoint CAPSULE, organizations can truly provide a single policy across their entire network, ensuring seamless, non-intrusive security for protection of assets, data, and devices everywhere. Now, looking at the management part of it, Checkpoint Security Management, while using that, it provides a single security management platform, whether it is for on-premise security gateways or for mobile devices using Checkpoint CAPSULE through the cloud. IT can easily manage mobile devices with a single integrated platform that delivers full visibility into mobile activity inside and outside the organization. So let's take a quick look at an example here. So here you see that John has access to an internal memo. Next, he changed the protection, which he is allowed to do. Then he uploads the file to Dropbox. You can see that the system asked him if his use complied to corporate policies. Then, as a next step, you see that Mike attempted to open the file, but it was blocked because he did not have access. So with Checkpoint CAPSULE, you can always stay on top of who is accessing files and data. You have visibility into what changes are made or what actions are taken. And you know where documents are being sent and used, for example, Dropbox. And with Checkpoint CAPSULE, you can understand and manage access rights and privileges to ensure only authorized users have access. Now, in addition, Checkpoint CAPSULE provides security across the widest range of platforms and documents in the industry. It is the only solution providing comprehensive coverage across iOS, Android, PC, and Mac platforms, and across Microsoft Office and Adobe Reader documents. Now, with that said, Checkpoint CAPSULE provides a seamless user experience, and it delivers seamless security everywhere you go. It protects your mobile devices from threats, and it provides a secure business environment for you to work on your mobile devices and secures the business documents to protect them everywhere they go. And with that, in the introduction of Checkpoint CAPSULE, I'd like to take the moment to ask you if you have any questions, please fill it out in the Q&A section, and we'll go and address that in a second. Okay, so here we have a question for John. The question is, what types of mobile malware are we seeing today, and are these threats to a threat to enterprise organizations?
Dutch, I touched upon that in my presentation, but let me be a little bit more specific. So we've seen a pretty steady increase in mobile malware written for the Android platform, not nearly as much on iOS, and that kind of supports what we've seen in the past. Now, most mobile malware is distributed on application stores, and especially rogue application stores, which are much more prevalent outside of the United States and Western Europe. Now, most of the mobile malware that we've seen has been on the Android platform. It's been in Asia, and it's been either Trojans to capture personal data and things like username, passwords, and banking passwords. Or it's been, the other thing that we've seen is some SMS type services that are being launched from mobile malware. Now, that hasn't, from an enterprise security perspective, that hasn't been a concern in the past, but what we're seeing is a couple of changes. Number one, what we're seeing is the presence of fully baked exploit kits available in the cyber criminal underground. So everything you need to develop mobile malware is now being packaged, and we think that that will start to make mobile malware a much more attractive means of penetrating companies. The other thing that we're seeing is mobile devices being used as, and I hate to use this expression, but it's appropriate, as a Trojan horse. So if you think of the attacks that have happened, and some people talk about the one at the Pentagon, there was one in the British military where someone threw USB thumb drives out and with the hopes that someone would plug them into a sensitive network, and that happened. What we're seeing now is mobile malware that compromises a mobile device, and then all it does is it opens up a Bluetooth network and goes out and tries to find other devices to infect. So it's just a means, it's a carrier and a means of spreading malware. So that's what we're seeing today, but just given the exploit kit, we really do believe that we'll see the onset of corporate-focused, targeted mobile malware in 2015 and beyond. And we're seeing that, other people are seeing that. So I think that's what you should expect, and obviously companies will need to build the right controls to protect against those kinds of threats.
Okay, and here's another question. Is mobile computing security done in conjunction with endpoint security? In the past, Dutch, it has not been. It was sort of a one-off, but we are seeing at least some big organizations thinking about consolidating their endpoint security and mobile security processes, tools, oversight
into some kind of a common either framework or common organization or something. So we are seeing a lot of interest in streamlining mobile security operations, rationalizing tools, all the things that I talked about, because if you take that mindset that the device is sort of just another platform used or being leveraged by a user or an employee, then you start to want to manage things on a user basis or a data basis, as you guys are doing at Checkpoint, versus on a device basis.
Okay, thank you. And we have some questions in regards to Checkpoint Capsule, so I'll be able to address those. One of the questions is Checkpoint Capsule available for Windows Mobile OS? Currently, we released Checkpoint Capsule for iOS and Android. We have it in the plans to also release it for Windows Mobile in the coming year. Then another question, can Capsule be used to offload internet security for non-mobile devices if there's a concern with undersized Checkpoint hardware to support a large amount of blades? So Checkpoint Capsule contains 3 different parts. One of the parts is Checkpoint Capsule Cloud. The Checkpoint Capsule Cloud provides a connection, a secure connection into the cloud where security is being enforced. Now, with that said, Capsule Cloud can be used for mobile devices, but it can also be used for other devices such as firewalls that connects into the cloud that does not have the threat prevention capabilities. So yes, you can actually offload the threat prevention part from either existing Checkpoint gateways or from third-party gateways in order to provide still the Checkpoint threat prevention capabilities, and that in the cloud. So another question, does Capsule have a remote wipe functionality for lost or stolen devices? Now, when we're talking about Capsule, the Checkpoint Capsule, another part of that is Checkpoint Capsule Workspace, which creates that secure business environment on your phone. If a device is stolen, lost, or stolen, IT has the ability to lock down the application because you have to first authenticate to the application. So they can lock down the application, and they can also do a remote wipe of the data that resides within that secured environment. Now, how does this compare to AirWatch? And I'd like to address that part. So Checkpoint Capsule is not an MDM solution. Checkpoint Capsule is focused on security, whereas MDM's main focus is controlling the mobile device. MDM provides you abilities to lock down applications, allow you to download only whitelisted applications, etc. So there are certain things that MDM does well. Checkpoint Capsule does not compare to that. In that case, you can actually deploy an MDM solution together with the Checkpoint Capsule, whereas Checkpoint Capsule main focus is security. So is Checkpoint Capsule a reasonable solution for small businesses with under 500 employees? So Checkpoint Capsule can be leveraged and is a viable solution for any size of business. As we've seen in the report that John talked about, the amount of mobile devices that are being seen in the large enterprise is between 1,000 and 10,000. Now, Checkpoint Capsule can provide a solution for 1,000, 10,000 devices and beyond. But if you really look at the small businesses, even a business with only 5 employees, this is a very viable solution and might be a very inexpensive solution as well, as the pricing will be per user per month. So if there are any other questions, please do put it in the Q&A section. So we have a question about versions. Any version requirements, such as only version 77.20, and we're talking about Checkpoint R 77.20. So for any syncing of the Capsule Cloud policies, you will need R 75.40. And you can also find the information in the data sheets available on the website for management of Capsule docs, which is the encrypting of documents and allowing or setting permissions for the documents, is R 77.20. So please go visit checkpoint.com/capsule, where you can find all the related documents as well for detailed information on supported versions. So if you want to get a quote, price quote, please get in touch with a Checkpoint sales representative or a Checkpoint partner that will be able to give you a quote. We have a question in regards to MAS 360. Has CAPSULE any integration with MAS 360? Now, as I mentioned, Checkpoint CAPSULE works well with third-party solutions, MDM solutions, etc. And I know that we have had successful deployments with MAS 360. The level of integration is something that we'll have to work on, but we have seen successful deployments with that solution. Okay, and with that said, if there are, we will have some other people answering remaining questions as well. But I'd like to thank you all for joining us. And for your reference, this webinar has been recorded and will be available for on-demand viewing on the Checkpoint website. So you will receive an email in the next few days with a link to the recorded presentation. So again, thank you for joining us for this webinar, and have a great day.